So you want to own a private jet. Skip the security lines, skip the middle seat, skip the guy next to you eating a tuna sandwich at 6 a.m. You'll buy a sleek $75 million machine, sip champagne at 45,000 feet, and land wherever you want, whenever you want. Here's the part nobody tells you. That jet, the one you own, is going to cost you money even when it's sitting completely still on the ground. Every single day. There are roughly 14,600 private jets registered in the United States right now. The industry hit a record 3.9 million global departures in 2025, up 34% from pre-COVID levels. Private aviation is booming, and yet most people who dream about owning a jet have no idea how the actual economics work. They see the plane, they don't see the invoice. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how private jet ownership really works, what it costs to buy, what it costs every single year just to keep it alive, the one rule that tells you whether ownership even makes financial sense for you, the creative workaround wealthy owners use to take the pain away, and the environmental time bomb quietly attached to the whole thing. We're going to cover 5 core segments, and I promise by the end you will never look at a private jet the same way again. Let's start with what it actually costs to get in the door. Before you fly a single inch in your new jet, you have to buy the thing, and the range is so wide it almost feels like a joke. A used very light jet, the smallest category, starts at around $1 to $3 million for an older model. That gets you a 4-seat aircraft that can hop between cities. It's private, it's fast, and it is, by private jet standards, basically a studio apartment in a neighborhood you weren't sure about. On the other end, a brand new Gulfstream G700. Elon Musk jet of choice lists at around $78 million. Jeff Bezos recently upgraded to one too, selling off his old Gulfstream G650ER like it was a used Toyota. A fully outfitted Bombardier Global 8000, which delivered its first aircraft in late 2025 and can fly nonstop from New York to Singapore, sits comfortably above $78 million before you even start customizing the interior. Total new jet price range across all categories, $5 million to well over $100 million. Now here's where it gets interesting. New jets are the premium. Pre-owned jets, which make up the bulk of what gets traded, typically sell for 20 to 50% below new pricing, and jets depreciate fast. On average, a new private jet loses 10 to 15% of its value in the first year alone, then 5 to 10% every year after that. You buy an $80 million jet. By next year, on paper, it might be worth $68 million. You have not yet flown it once to justify that loss. Most buyers don't pay cash. The typical financing structure is 20 to 30% down, with loan terms of 10 to 20 years and interest rates that have recently ranged from 6 to 8%. Maritime billionaires borrow 70% to buy ships. Private jet buyers do something similar. The difference is a ship earns charter income daily. Your jet earns you the privilege of owning a jet. We'll get back to how you fix that. The purchase price is actually the easy part to understand. You write the check once. What most people don't realize is that owning a private jet has a completely separate, recurring price tag that shows up every single year whether the plane flies or not. The industry breaks it into fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are what you pay just to have the jet. Variable costs are what you pay every time it actually moves. Let's walk through the fixed costs first. Crew salaries. A private jet requires at minimum 1 pilot. Most midsize and larger jets require 2, plus flight attendants for longer trips. Total crew cost for a midsize jet, $200,000 to $450,000 per year. Per year. They are on salary whether the jet is in the air or not. Hangar fees. Your $75 million machine cannot sit outside in the rain. You need to rent a climate-controlled hangar at an airport. In a smaller city, $30,000 to $50,000 per year. At a major metropolitan airport, think New York, LA, Miami, hangar fees can run $240,000 to $480,000 annually, just to park it. Insurance. Aviation insurance runs roughly 1 to 3% of the aircraft's value per year. On a $20 million jet, that's $200,000 to $600,000 annually. On a $75 million jet, do the math yourself and maybe sit down first. Maintenance. Depending on the aircraft's age and type, expect $500,000 to $1 million or more per year in scheduled and unscheduled maintenance. The FAA does not accept, I'll get to it later. Management fees. If you hire an aircraft management company, which most owners do, because running a certified aircraft is genuinely complicated, add another $50,000 to $250,000 per year, then you fly it, and variable costs kick in. Jet fuel now runs around $6 to $7 per gallon. A mid-sized jet burns roughly 180 to 250 gallons per hour. A 2-hour trip, that's $2,000 to $3,500 in fuel. Before landing fees, before handling fees, before international fees. If you cross a border, add it all up. For a mid-sized jet flown 200 hours per year, total annual operating costs, fixed and variable combined, excluding purchase price and depreciation, run between $800,000 and $1.5 million. For a large cabin or ultra-long-range jet, over $2 million per year. Some owners of the biggest aircraft spend closer to $4 million annually just to keep the thing operational. The jet does not care if you use it. The bill arrives anyway. Wait, there's more. Here's the question that actually matters. When does owning a jet make more financial sense than just chartering one? The answer has a specific number attached to it. If you charter a private jet, meaning you rent one by the flight costs, typically run $5,000 to $15,000 per hour depending on aircraft size. You pay, you fly, you're done. No crew on salary, no hangar, no maintenance reserve, no depreciation eating your net worth quietly in the background. For someone who flies private occasionally, chartering is almost always cheaper than owning. The break-even point, the moment where full ownership starts making financial sense compared to chartering, is approximately 200 to 250 flight hours per year. Below 200 hours? Charter. Or look at fractional ownership, where you buy a share of a specific aircraft and pay for the hours you actually use. Fractional ownership is currently the fastest growing segment in private aviation, up 75% since 2019, because it threads the needle between ownership prestige and charter flexibility. Above 200 hours, full ownership starts to make the math work, especially once you factor in time savings, schedule flexibility, and the ability to use your aircraft to earn charter revenue when you're not flying it. Because yes, you can rent out your own jet, and that changes the economics entirely. Here's the move that wealthy jet owners use to make the math less painful. When you're not using your aircraft, which, if you fly 150 to 200 hours a year, is most of the time, you can put it on a charter certificate and rent it to other people. The structure works like this. You partner with an FAA certified Part 135 operator, a charter management company. They market your aircraft, handle scheduling, manage the clients. When the jet flies on a charter, the operator typically keeps 15% of the base rate. You keep 85%. Your variable cost fuel, landing fees still come out of that revenue, but the excess goes toward offsetting your fixed cost. Charter revenue can reduce your total operating expenses by up to 80% in a strong year with high utilization. Industry guidance is more conservative. A realistic estimate is 60% offset of your annual fixed cost from a well-managed charter program. That sounds great. Here's the catch. Charter only offsets costs. It does not eliminate them. If your aircraft is flying charter often enough to seriously cut your expenses, it's also accumulating flight hours, maintenance cycles, and wear faster than if you were flying it yourself. The more charter revenue you earn, the faster the plane ages. The faster it ages, the more your annual maintenance bill grows, and the more your resale value drops. Aviation experts are direct about this. Chartering your aircraft is a way to reduce costs, not a way to profit. The owners who genuinely profit from charter are charter operators. Businesses built around flying other people's money. If that were reliably profitable for individual owners, the math would already have attracted more competition. The smart approach: use charter revenue to take the edge off an expensive asset, not to justify buying an asset you can't otherwise afford. Private jets carry a cost that doesn't show up in any budget spreadsheet, but is increasingly showing up in public backlash, legislation, and social media, and it's reshaping how wealthy people think about flying private. The data here is stark. A private jet emits, on average, up to 20 times more CO2 per passenger than a commercial flight. Per passenger kilometer, a private jet is roughly 14 times more polluting than a commercial plane, according to Transport and Environment, and 50 times more polluting than a train. In 2023, global private aviation produced at least 15.6 million metric tons of CO2, up 46% from 2019 levels. Almost half of all private jet flights, 47%, covered less than 500 kilometers, distances that could be driven or trained. Almost half of all private flights are on routes that could have been a train ride. Jeff Bezos' single G650ER, just one of several jets in his fleet, flew 73 flights in 2024 and emitted roughly 1,100 tons of carbon in the process. His entire fleet released about 3,600 tons of carbon that year, the same amount an average American would produce in over a century. Taylor Swift faced a public reckoning over private jet emissions. So did Elon Musk. So has essentially every public figure whose aircraft gets tracked by the now ubiquitous jet tracking accounts on social media. The industry is trying to respond. Sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, can reduce life cycle CO2 emissions by 60 to 80% compared to conventional jet fuel. But SAF currently costs 2 to 3 times more than regular jet fuel and accounted for only 0.2% of all aviation fuel used in 2023. Electric and hydrogen aircraft are in development, but they are years to decades away from being viable for the distances and speeds private jets cover. Right now, the math on private jet emissions is hard to escape. And as governments in Europe and elsewhere begin to regulate or tax private aviation more aggressively, the environmental cost is starting to look like a financial one too. You can buy a $75 million jet. You cannot buy your way out of the physics. Let's pull it all together and look at 2 real scenarios. No fantasy, just the numbers. Scenario 1, the light jet owner. You buy a used light jet for $5 million. You fly it 200 hours a year, enough to make ownership pencil out versus chartering. Annual operating costs, roughly $500,000 to $900,000, covering crew, fuel, hangar, maintenance, and insurance. Depreciation, roughly $500,000 in year 1 alone, declining gradually after that. You place the jet on charter when you're not using it. Best case, you offset $300,000 to $400,000 in annual fixed costs from charter revenue. Net annual cost, still $200,000 to $600,000 per year after charter. Plus, your original $5 million is worth roughly $4 million by next year. For someone flying 200 plus hours with genuine time savings generating real business value, this can be completely rational. For someone flying 50 hours because they thought it would be cool, it is one of the most expensive hobbies in American life. Scenario 2, the heavy jet owner. You buy a new Gulfstream G700, $78 million base price. Annual costs, $2 million to $3 million per year between crew, hangar, maintenance, insurance, and fuel before depreciation. Year 1 depreciation loss, approximately $8 to $12 million. Charter offset in a strong year, maybe $600,000 to $1 million back. Net year 1, all-in cost, including the depreciation you took, can easily clear $12 million to $15 million. This is why private jets are rarely framed as investments. They are expenses, very fast, very comfortable, very prestigious expenses. Here's what you now know that most people don't. A private jet is not a vehicle. It is an ongoing financial obligation that happens to move. The purchase price is the beginning, not the end. The real cost is the annual operating bill, $500,000 to $4 million plus every year, in good times and bad, whether you fly it or not. The 200-hour rule is real. Below it, chartering is smarter. Above it, ownership makes more financial sense, especially when you pair it with a charter revenue program that puts the asset to work when you're not using it. And underneath all of it is a growing environmental reckoning that is slowly moving from social media criticism toward legislative pressure. There are 14,600 private jets in the United States. Every one of them has an owner writing a very large check every single month. Some of those owners are getting genuine business value that justifies the expense. Some of them will quietly sell their jets in 3 years and tell you they decided they just didn't need it anymore. The ones who make private jet ownership work are not the ones who can afford to buy a jet. They're the ones who can afford to own one, which is a very different number. If this video changed how you think about private aviation, hit the like button. It helps more people find this content. And drop a comment below. Would you rather own the jet outright, do fractional ownership, or just charter when you need it? I want to see what you'd actually do.